These are the top 5 apps that I use as a biomedical science student studying in 2026. Now, first up is Genio Notes. Now, this is something you have to access either through DSA or I don't know if you can get a private license for it, but it's definitely accessible through DSA if you get that. And this essentially transcribes your lectures into sort of manageable formats. It can sort of record them as audio files. It can record them as just lumps of text. It can also record them as, so it can also use AI to kind of break them down into notes. There's also buttons you can use to also flag the important bits and sort of click what is important. And you can also sort of take little notes of your own, sort of if you don't quite trust the recording, you can sort of write down bits saying, assignment due then, or however it will do that itself. It's a very, very good tool for if you're sort of wanting to passively, for example, if you had like an hour of sleep, if you had no caffeine, it's a really good tool to just have in the background. It's available on your laptop, on your phone, on your tablet. It's available on literally everything. And it uses a cloud service as well, so you can literally access anything from anywhere. It is honestly a lifesaver for those busy mornings when you've been out at ocean all night and you've literally had no sleep. Next up is a fan favorite, and that is OneNote. Now, basically every single university student has tried OneNote at some point, and that's because it is incredibly easy to use if you have a Microsoft device. Obviously, if you're on a MacBook, you might still have tried it, but you've probably tried Apple Notes instead. But OneNote is a very, very basic, very, very easy to use tool if you're just looking for something to take notes on, just type it. I personally use it for sort of summaries or sort of more detailed notes where there's sort of a lot more detail to go into that I sort of need to sort of memorize rather than just understand. I also use it if I want to have that feeling of taking notes, if I want to feel productive, I can get my keyboard out and I can sit at my desk and just type for hours. One really good thing about OneNote is you can include drawings from a tablet as well. So I have mine linked to my Samsung tablet, and basically I can add a diagram just sort of on that, and it will literally appear in real time on the screen on my laptop. Another really good thing is obviously it's linked to OneDrive, so it's going to be university linked. You can access it from your sort of school account, you can access it from your personal account. It's so easy to back up and use. It does it itself. It's really, really easy. Another great thing as well is that because it works just like Microsoft Word, it's so easy to use. Like, genuinely, it looks super complicated because you can't just type, you kind of type, it gives you like this box to type in, but as long as you figure out how to resize the box, which is just as simple as dragging, you genuinely are going to be okay with it. It is a really nice piece of software. It's not particularly fancy, there's nothing exceptional about it, but it gets the job done if you just wanted something really easy and simple. Honestly, a lifesaver for if you've got more detailed notes and you want them to stay reasonably organized, because you can also color code each individual notebook, if you will, and then obviously so it's like a notebook, and then you have like chapters, which is the color codes, and then you can also have sort of pages within those chapters. It's very, very nice to organize and very, very easy to use. Another great one that I like to use is a web app called LumenNote, and this is a very, very new app, and essentially it is what Genio Notes does, except it is sort of, I would actually say, better at what it does. However, it is strictly a web app. So this thing, they both have positives, and I use them both equally. So LumenNote is a lot better at sort of, you upload, so instead of having an audio file, you upload the PowerPoint itself, and you can choose sort of the length of detail you want in your notes, and it will add pictures in, it will summarize it, and it will even give you questions to answer at the end and further reading to sort of increase your depth on the topic. The organization's great as well. Like, it's quite well organized. It's not as well organized as something like OneNote or even Genio. It's very similar to Genio in the organization, but I'd say Genio just gets it a little bit better. Again, there isn't a cloud service as far as I'm aware, like Genio has. However, genuinely, it's a lot better at transcribing. I will say that. I put my lecture notes in. About a minute and a half later, I had a full page of notes with a decent amount of detail, with like diagrams. It chose which diagrams to get from the PowerPoint. It took questions out for me, and I felt so much more prepared for exams. They're really great if you want sort of a concise document to read for exams rather than sort of in-depth notes, although it can do those as well. So it's a really diverse tool that I think would really be beneficial to sort of those more lectures that you don't really want to read through 80 slides of genetics and immunology, since if you just had 2 hours of it. If you've got quite fast talking lecturers as well, what I generally like to do with my fast talking lecturers is I will generate the notes sort of in the extreme detail version on Lumen Note, and I will sort of read through it and add my own adaptations as I go, because you can edit them as well. Actually, if you use my code TOM25, you actually get 25% off your first month, because it is a paid subscription. It's not particularly expensive for what it is, but obviously we love a 25% off our first month, so that could be really, really helpful if you're struggling with larger lectures. Would not be an apps for students video if I did not mention Notion. Now, Notion is a love-hate relationship for me personally. I think it is very, very diverse. I think if you know how to use it, it is incredible. However, there is one small thing about Notion that drives me up the wall, and yet it's like a toxic egg. You keep going back, because it is paid for a lot of the cool stuff that you see other people do. That's paid. The modules, the to-do lists, specific, like for just the general year. So sort of like, oh, like, you know, exams are this date. And then sort of you dive into the more, it's basically works kind of like web pages. It's like a cross between a web page and a file explorer is the best way to describe it. You have your bar at the top, which is sort of laid out like a file explorer. So if you go back into the files, but Notion itself is laid out using links. So you sort of link to a different page. If you make a different page, if you will. So for example, mine, I have my genetics immunology page, which I have sort of AI detected meeting notes. You can also upload PDFs as your notes instead, which is what I did at the start of the year. I sort of uploaded my living systems notes, and I essentially had it as like I used it as more of a storage. And then I upgraded it to the AI meeting, and I used that. And then I cancelled that at the end of this year, because I need to pick one and stick to it next year. So that in itself will be a choice I'll probably make a video about. But yeah, I would say Notion is really diverse. It's just very difficult to set up and use if you've never used it before. It took me about 4 hours. So, but once you've set it up, the possibilities are limitless. Finally, we have the last of a long line of note-taking apps on my tablet, and that is Noteen. Now, I have tried a lot of note-taking apps. Obviously, seen on my TikTok, I had a Lenovo Tab M11, and then I got my iPad Air 13-inch M3, and I tried GoodNotes. I've tried GoodNotes. I tried Notability. I've tried FreeNotes. I've tried Noteen, obviously. I've tried NoteShelf. I've tried NoteWise. I've tried them all, and Noteen is probably the one I've decided to stick with. I've also tried another one. I can't remember what it was called. I used it on my Lenovo for quite a bit, but Noteen is the best balance, I would say, of a one-off purchase rather than a yearly subscription, which I'd rather pay one-off, because let's be honest, you're not getting a decent free noting app. Free Notes is good, but I do think Noteen is a bit more optimized generally. And I think the layout of it is very, very clever. You can sort of sort by PDFs, you can sort into folders, you can have an infinite canvas as well. Sort of if you wanted to do more of a huge mind map kind of situation, you can do that, or just a brain dump. You can have sort of your traditional notes, sort of portrait, landscape, different colors. For example, I know you can make it red wine color. You can have sort of different color pens, pencils, everything. And I do find that genuinely the handwriting is a lot smoother on Noteen than it is on some other apps. Like, for example, GoodNotes on Android is not as good as it is on sort of iPad, because when I got rid of my iPad, I got a Samsung S10 FE Plus, which means that obviously I had to sort of change the apps that I was using. But no, I'd say Noteen is definitely, no noting app is perfect. I will say GoodNotes is perfect if you're on an iPad. If you're on Android, you're kind of stuck for what you can get. I did try the popular one, I forget what it's called. I will probably put it down here if I remember it. But I would say that Noteen is probably my personal favourite, but again, it's a personal thing, noting apps. But I use this for sort of, if I've got, for example, I use it for more anatomical subjects, so like blood vessels, muscles, where I can do sort of a diagram with different colours. I can sort of draw my labels. It's a lot easier for if you're doing sort of, for example, physiology or anatomy, sort of anything medical related. It's really, really good to handwrite your notes. I also find that just brain dumping using a pen instead of a keyboard tends to help me remember stuff a bit more long term. I used to use it from all my notes, but it was taking me far too long. So again, this is why I use a combination of all these 5. I I will put links to some of them down below, as well as my code for Lumen Note. You all have an amazing day, and I will catch you in the next one.